Bang! Neeves Knives, I'm Jarrett and KUBEY with another heater. Shout out to Tempest Knives, that is the designer, KC over at Knives Fast on YouTube. And this is the KB470. So you're gonna find this on KB Knives, which I do have a 20% discount code. So do not miss out on my discount code. So if you're buying a KUBEY or KB Knives is the premium line of KUBEY. I have links for both of them and discount codes for both companies. Now, let's talk about this one. We obviously have an integral. I believe, not 100%, but I believe this is KC or Tempest Knives' first integral. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. So that's awesome to see. So this is a very, very premium blade right here, premium knife. You know, the blade steel is M390 with a titanium integral, beautiful micro milling that's also featured on the clip, which is a reversible clip. So we do have a reversible clip. You have a little shield right there, or, you know, a little spot to protect the hole from debris getting in there and stuff like that. And, you know, it just looks cool. You can see this is your access to your pivot because you can't take the scales apart, right? Integral means this entire handle is made out of one solid piece. It's machined out of one piece. So there's no way to take it apart. So you need a way to pull the blade off. So what you do is you open up this window and that will give you access to your bearings and stuff like that. And you can see, I love how they did this. This is kind of cool. You got the cutout for the pivot, right? Or, you know, to access the knife. And then that kind of lines up somewhat in a way with the steel lock bar insert, which has the same micro milling on it. And then it transitions all the way up to here. That is dope. Really, really cool. The little corner doesn't bother me. Sometimes people complain about that. I'm not going to. So I like that, man. The machining looks really cool. Nice texturing on the lock bar access. You know, Tempest Knives, KC, he's a knife guy. So he obviously gets to handle not only an insane amount of knives, you know, he's going to be somebody who's going to have a lot of knife guy preferences, like, you know, a lot of us, which is why I've always encouraged and thought it was cool for knife reviewers to design knives. Right? Who's better to design a knife than somebody who's handled every company's knives and everything out there, right? I think that that's a good thing. Yes, you could say that, of course, some people are going to be biased and whatnot and so forth, but that's going to be with any industry and everywhere you go. I think that in order to get the best possible products to the people are going to be based on the user and somebody who is, you know, who is, very, very intrigued and, you know, whatever about knives, like that are involved with knives the most and handle the most, so they understand what company does what best and what company does what worst. And then, you know, you can kind of, you know, make your own designs based on those features. Now, like I said, access to the lock bar, awesome. Thumb stud deployment, whoo, phenomenal thumb stud deployment. It has a smoothness to it that doesn't feel like bearings, but it's got to be bearings because it's just too smooth or too drop shutty to not be bearings. But it has this luxurious smoothness that I got to give KUBEY credit on. This, I don't feel, you can't even hear it. I don't feel any bearings at all. So when you disengage, you can easily drop that down to your finger. As long as you're up high, it will hit the non-sharp part right there. Or you can just let it, you know, unhinge past the detent ball, because right there's the detent when you disengage. So you would have to be past that to not double clutch, but it's very easy to get past because it's so early. And then once you're past that, a couple little very, very gentle shakes will get it all the way down. You just, you know, give it a little bit of encouragement and it's going down. Thumb studs placement, amazing. This is chamfered downward slightly, if you can see that. So this place right here allows your thumb to basically just launch right to the spot. I can follow this ridge all the way up and I'm going to hit the stud very nicely. So you don't even have to see it or anything, and you're going to easily launch this thing out. Same thing with the reverse flick. I can just move it right up, bang. But obviously we know where the thumb studs are placed. I'm just saying, you know, it's very easy to deploy this. It feels really good. It has a very good detent. Very good slow roll too. So this isn't a detent where when you go to do a slow roll, it goes pop and then starts flying upward where you can't barely do a slow roll. This one you can very easily do a slow roll, but it has plenty of detent for you to launch it. Very, very good ergonomics. Again, you know, about the action, the access to the lock bar is amazing. So that definitely adds to the function of the deployment and closing, something I love. And, you know, like I said just a second ago, the ergos are phenomenal. This is nice and, it's not super slim, but it feels relatively slim. Is it thickening up back here? I think it goes slimmer to thicker. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Let me see. Am I hallucinating? No, wait. Yeah, 3.7. Yes, so it does go from slimmer to thicker back here, which, you know, is something I encourage for the opposite direction where it goes slimmer to thicker back here. So this is cool. Yeah, it makes for a very comfortable ergonomics. You got a nice choke up spot. Now let's talk about some nitpicks and negatives. Well, hold on, one thing really quick, the geometry of the blade feels really, really good. Yeah, 15 thousandths behind the edge. I've noticed KUBEY's been doing that lately. That's really awesome. And it has a full, 100% full flat grind. So that is, you know, very, very slicey. It has a little bit of a higher tip than I like, but that's preference. A lot of people like a higher tip because they can use the belly to cut down on a flat surface. I prefer a lower tip for utility cuts. With this one, I do have to raise my elbow up quite high to get to the tip. Is it a big deal? No. Could I easily use it as a work knife? For sure. Just talking preferences here. As far as the, more nitpicks, you know, that was one little nitpick. The other nitpick is the clip lands directly on this lock bar cutout. Now, I understand why he couldn't have them put on the inside. So this is an example where I can't argue for that. I can't argue for him to put the lock bar cutout on the inside, which I think he typically does anyways. But it's an integral, so they couldn't take the knife apart to do that. And I doubt they could have went through one of these holes. But what I'm going to say is that, man, I wish there was maybe either these were moved up farther or the clip extended just a little bit further. Now, to be fair, I have put this in and out of the pocket and it works just fine. But jeans are not made equally. I bet you my thick jeans would, you know, have a little bit more trouble than the, like, you know, my regular jeans I'm wearing right now, which are like Levi's. I will say he did have the edges knocked down. So that is going to help prevent it. If you look at each corner of these, you know, spots, the corners are knocked down. So that is what's going to help your pants go over. When they're sharp corners, it catches really bad. So this clip is the best case scenario for it landing there. So I'll just say that. So, you know, good for him on, you know, working that out because that can be difficult. My next nitpick would be the plunge grind. So the plunge grind is a good, it's past. It's good and it's past. But, and I mean past because this is the end of the plunge grind, right? This is what we care about, the end. We don't necessarily care about the beginning, we care about the end. Now, the end is away from the edge bevel, which is what we want because we need the steel removal to sharpen before we start chewing into all of this stuff with our stones, right? We need a little bit of room right there. Otherwise, our stone will chew it all to pieces, right? So that's good that we do have clearance. However, there was a lot of room here for more clearance. I kind of wish that this transition was much more faster instead of so slow. You know, I don't like tapering plunge grinds where they start here and then they slowly taper all the way here. And listen, I'm guilty of it too. I've done plunge grinds like that, and sometimes it makes it to where it's like, well, where is the end of the plunge grind? Luckily with this one, you can see it clear as day. But it would have been cool if this was a more rapid taper where it just went right down and then the plunge grind ended way back here so you had way more room, you know, or, you know, just basically straight up with a Dremel and make it a little bit more of a curve. There's a few different ways to do it. And then if you moved maybe the edge even just forward a little bit more, you have a little bit more access to not hit the edge because once you start sharpening, that edge is going to start moving back this way. So, you know, not that that's a big deal because you should be able to control the edge not hitting you. But if you're trying to make a spot here to land on your finger, if you are, then that would be a time when you'd consider it. You know, it's after the sharpening. not that big of a deal. None of those things are even close to being a deal breaker. This is a great design. Not only is it an attractive design, it's very mass appealing. The holes, not everybody's going to love the holes. To be fair, I'm 50-50 on them. Not on this design, I'm saying on holes in knives. I'm 50-50. Some of them I like, some of them I don't. Some of them I love, some of them I hate. Sometimes I think it's not necessary. Sometimes I'm like, damn, that looks cool. It just depends. Depends on how they're done. I will say one thing that would have increased this, and maybe there's other versions that are like this, I don't know, but the chamfer around the edge, you see how each triangle hole has a rounded corner and has a chamfer around the edge. That chamfer could have been polished. If you polish those chamfers, it makes the thing pop. Just saying, that would have been kind of cool, and it probably would have increased my liking to them. Not that I dislike them. I'm on this exact knife, I'm kind of, you know, I could take them or leave them. Doesn't really matter. I think it adds a little flair to the design, which is cool. So not something I would run away from for sure. I don't mind them. I'm just, it's not, they're nothing to me. But if they're polished, they definitely would be kind of cool. And then you could also add maybe a polished pivot collar, maybe a little polished insert, just little details you can maybe polish in other places to make it stand out. Even this little piece and this little piece, whatever. Anyways, like Nick Shabazz, I digress. I like it. I like it quite a bit. I think it is a possibly even an alternative to the, what the hell is that brand called? The man, I can't think of the name of them now. Oh man, I just had it on the tip of my tongue. The blah blah starts with a B, doesn't it? Or a D, B or D. They have an integral that's made by Riet. They sell it for like $700. I've shown some of their stuff on the channel before. They're typically overpriced, but they do have good work, especially made by Riet. This would be a great alternative to that. I'm going to try to put it up on the screen if I can figure out that damn name. Anyways, I'm embarrassed. You guys caught me slipping. It's crossed. It's, I've lost it from my brain already. Anyways, awesome knife design. Great job, KC. I think this one could, be a great knife in anybody's collection. The one thing that I would love to have seen is instead of doing this blasted finish, it'd been really cool if this was like a mirrored stone wash. It would look a little bit more elegant, especially with the integral, or a deep satin. I think that would have been really cool. I understand the blasted finish on the handle, but you can, like I said, do the little accents like I mentioned to mix it up a little bit. But I'm sure there's multiple different colors. And I will link everything down in the description with a discount code. Work hard, stay tough. Till next time. Peace.